Hi, hello, Sumates. How are you all doing? How on a day? I hope everything is moving perfectly. Yeah, this today I'll be making this particular dress. It's a wrapper dress. Yeah, it's a wrapper gown, and I would like to cut the upper part here. I've already measured out the upper part. Yeah, before I proceed, I'm doing this on behalf of Gifted Hands Fashion House. Please, if you are joining us newly, feel free to subscribe to our channel and also click on that button, that notification bell you are seeing below this page. Click on it so that whenever I make new posts, you'll be able to get it. And then, if what we are doing pleases you, if you think you like what we are doing, please like our page as well. Let's see you liking this page. Yeah. So to make this dress, I'll be cutting out the upper part, which I've already done. From this point to this one here is my starting point. I marked 1 inch for my starting point. I folded my fabric with my bust measurement. I'm working with a bust of 49. 49 divided by 4 is 12.25 plus 6 inches or 5 inches. You can add about 5 to 6 inches for your allowance. Okay, since it's a bustier, since I'll be padding this dress, so I'm adding about 5 to 6 inches for my allowance. Actually, what I added in this one is 6 inches. So 12.25, which is 49 divide 49 is the bust measurement, and I'm using 49 because from my shoulder to this half length, the biggest part is my bust, and my bust measurement is 49. 49 divided by 4, it's 12.25 plus 6 inches seam allowance will give me 18.25. So 18.25 is the width of my work. Here's it here. I have about 19. It's better I have more than have less and run short of fabric. So I have my 19 here. Then for the length, I'm using my half length measurement. My half length is 18 inches. Yes, 18. And then I added about 2 inches seam allowance. Still better I have excess than running short of fabric. Okay, so I've marked this part. I'm going to rule it out in a straight line. This is my half length, and then here is my allowance, my seam allowance. All right, my starting point, half length, and seam allowance. Now the next thing to do, I'm going to place my tape at this starting point, and then I'll take my chest line. I'm working with a chest line of 9 inches. Here's my 9 inches. Your chest line, even without measuring it, you can use between 7, 8, or 9 inches. If the person is big, you can use 9 inches. If the person is average, you can use 8, and if the person is small, you can use 7. Another method of getting it is your bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1 inch. Okay, your bust measurement, that is your bust divided by 6 plus 1, will give you this chest line I'm marking here. So I have 9 inches here. Then the next thing measurement to take is my bust point. I'm working with a bust point of 12.5. Here is it, 12.5. And then I'm also working with an underbust of 15.5, sorry, 16. Here's my underbust of 16, and then here's my half length and seam allowance. All right, okay, I've connected my lines. Let me make it more obvious, this is chest line, and here's my bust point, under bust, half length, and seam allowance. Then here's my starting point. All right, the next thing to do, from this top here, I'll take my shoulder measurement. I'm working with a shoulder of 16 divided by 2 is 8. You can add about half an inch or 1 inch to it. But if you add 1 inch, be mindful that you are going to shape it when you'll be fixing your sleeve. Okay? So 16 divided by 2 is 8 plus 1, 9. Here is it. I'll also mark 9 on this chest line here so that it will be easy for me to connect. So I'll connect this line to this one. Alright? So this becomes my armhole. I'll also mark my neck measurement. I'll be marking a neck of 4 inches. I'll make 4 by, let me make 4 by 3.5, so that by the time I'll sew it, it will extend down to 4 by 4. The next thing I'll do is to take my slope, my shoulder slope of 1 inch. I'll connect it to my neckline. Okay, remember your allowance. The essence of this starting point is so that I can equally get my shoulder slope from here. So what I'll do here, I'm going to mark my shoulder slope of half an inch, just like this. Half an inch and half. I'll connect it as well. So this is the allowance I'll be using to join my shoulder. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to connect my armhole. From this point, I have 8 inches. Now this 8, I'm going to take half of my 8 inches, which is 4. From this 4, I'm going to extend it out to 0.75. That's 3/4 of an inch. You can use half an inch if the person is small. So I can connect this now. I don't have my curve ruler here, but let me do it with this. Right, I've curved my armhole. The next thing to do, I'm going to take my bust measurement. I have to mark my bust measurement first. So I'm working with a bust of 49 divided by 4 is 12.5. I'll mark my 12.5 here. Sorry, 12.25. Okay, and I'm going to add like 0.5 inches for ease. So I have 12.75. Here is my bust measurement. Next, I'm going to take my nipple to nipple measurement. I'm working with a nipple to nipple of 9 inches. Divide by 2 is 4.5 plus half an inch. I have 5. Mark 5 all the way. So this is my nipple to nipple measurement. Now, on my under bust, I'm going to take my dart. I'll be marking 2 inches by this side, 2 inches here, and I'll mark 1 inch here. I'll also extend extend it down here 2 inches, and here 1 inch. But if the person doesn't have bust, you can mark 1.5 here and 1 here, depending on the size of the bust. So having done this, I'm going to, from this bust point, I'm going to extend it down here with 1 inch. I'm using one because the person is busty. If the person is not busty, you can use half. So I haven't done this. I'll connect like this. From this point, I'll connect to this one. And from this point, I'll connect to this one. Then I'll extend this one down and extend this down as well. Okay, the next thing to do now, I'm going to take my yoke. Remember, it's a yoke dress. So from this starting point, I want a yoke, a sweetheart yoke. So I actually want it at 8 inches, but I'll mark at 7 inches so that I can form my sweetheart at 8. You know, if I mark at 8, it means it will go it will extend down so much, and the cleavage might be obvious. So I'll mark at 7 inches, and then I'll use 1 inch for my sweetheart. So this is my yoke line. That's my yoke line. The next thing to do, I'm going to mark out 1 inch down here because I want a sweetheart yoke. But if you don't want it the sweetheart method, you can leave it like this. Alright? Then I'm also going to extend this line up here. See it? So I've extended the line up. The next thing to do, I'll mark 1 inch on both sides because I also want to get my dart here. So I've marked 1 inch on both sides. And now I'm going to connect this 1 inch. From here, I'll connect it to this point. And from this one, I'll connect it as well to this point. You can use your ruler and then curve it if you don't have your curve ruler. Like this. And this. Sorry, this shock is not all that obvious. But I guess you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I've connected this line. Now you can see the shape. You can see it here. The next thing to do, I need to form my sweetheart shape. So from this 1 inch I marked here, I'll take it to this point, just like this. I hope you can see. So here is the way it will go down to this point. All right, and then the next thing to do, I'm going to take my vertical measurements. So, okay, before that, let's not forget the 2 inches I mark here. I need to extend it out here because if I don't bring out these 2 inches out here, it's going to be a hell of problem for me. So these 2 inches, see it here, these 2 inches that here, I've marked it here. You can see it, 2 inches. So having done that, I'm going to reconnect my armhole. I've reconnected my armhole so I can conveniently bring it down like this, okay? So this is the new armhole I'll be working with. Now, the next thing I need to do, I'll be taking my measurements here. Working with from the chest line, I've already taken my bust measurement. And then my bust measurement of 12.25, and I added 0.5 inches for ease. So I'll be adding these 2 inches you are seeing here, this dart. I'll be adding it to what I have here. Here is it, 2 inches. Mind you, I've not added seam allowance. Then on the under bust, I'll take my under bust measurement. My under bust is my under bust is 42. 42 divided 4 is 10.5. So here's my 10.5. And then I need to add this allowance here, this dart here, that of 3 inches. So I'll add it to this 10.5. The next measurement I'll take is my waist measurement. I'm working with a waist measurement of 42.5. So 42.5 divided by 4. 42.5 divided by 4 is 10.625. Here's my 10.625 plus this dart here, 3 inches. So I have 3 inches added to it. Here's it. I'm going to connect the lines I have here. This is just what I have. Extend it down. Okay, so here's what I have. Now I'll be adding my allowance of 2 inches to here. I have 2 inches. You can make it 3 if you want. And here I have 2 inches. So here's what I have. Okay, the neckline here, you can give it any shape of your choice. I'll just curve it here. So I think this is all for this front part. I'll cut it out now. So before I cut, this part is the yoke, and I'll be drafting this part on another fabric, on a net fabric. I won't be using this particular fabric for my yoke. So for me to cut this yoke, I'm first of all going to add half an inch for my allowance all the way, because I'll need to join it while sewing. Okay, so this half an inch will serve for my allowance, my sewing allowance. That is when I'll be joining the yoke and the fabric. So I need to connect this. I'll be cutting it off from here. And since I'm removing it from this yoke up here, since I took off half an inch from this yoke, while drafting it on the fabric that I'll be using, I'm going to add this half inch first. This half inch I removed, I'll add it first before I add another half inch seam allowance that I'll be using to join this part. Hope you understand me. So what I'll do now is to cut it like this from this point. Shape out my yoke. place the yoke, and then I'll cut from here as well. From this point, I'll cut it out. I'll cut from here too. Here's what I have. I don't need to cut this off. Don't make the mistake of cutting off this place. This is the allowance I'll be needing to join with the yoke. And then I stole this allowance from this yoke up here. Okay? I remove this allowance from this yoke. So what I'll do is, this one I stole, I'll add it back first, which is half an inch. I'll add it back, and then after doing this, I'll now add the real allowance needed, which is half an inch. So the allowance I'll be adding here is 1 inch. Here's what we have. So lest I forget, I'm going to notch my bust point. It's necessary you notch it, and I'll also notch my under bust. It's necessary, very necessary you notch it. I'll repeat same for this other side. I'll notch my bust point, and I'll also notch my under bust. Okay. So with this now, I can open up what I have here. All right. So here's what I have: the center part, the two side parts, and my yoke. Okay. So because of that 2 inches I added, that's why this yoke is like this. Had it been I didn't add 2 inches, this one would have been somewhere here, like this. And you end up finding, you find out that it won't come up to this end, and by then it must have been too late for you. Maybe the only option is to attach something which may not look good after everything. All right, then I'm going to use this now to trace it to the fabric I want to use for my yoke. I won't be using this for the yoke. And then that's what I'll do now. Here's the fabric I'm using for my yoke. So what I'll do now, I've folded it into two. You can see it's on fold. The fabric here is on fold. So what I'll do now is I also folded this one into two. So I placed it like this. I'm going to trace it out now and cut. Then before I do that, remember, I'm owing this fabric 1 inch allowance, half inch for joining, and that's half inch that I removed earlier and added to the lower part. So I'm going to be removing that 1 inch from it as soon as possible. So I'll measure out 1 inch all the way. One, 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 cutting it out. I'll do it and show you. So here is it. I've cut it out. You can see the 1 inch seam allowance. Even though I added like half an inch here, but it's not necessary. I'll still shape it off. I'll still shape it out when I'll be making the dress. So let's go to the back parts now. Okay, here now I have cut out the parts that I'll be using for the front bustier. You can see it. I also ironed light gum stay to it on the three sides. I ironed light gum stay on them. Then these are the parts. The only thing you need for your pad, as it is now, I'm okay with my pad. You don't need much measurement like most people will always do it. All you need to do is just cut a pad that can extend with about half an inch on both sides or 1 inch on both sides, and then make sure your pad doesn't that make sure the pad is not longer than your underbust. You can see my underbust notch here, so make sure the pad is not longer than the underbust. Make sure your pad stops at your underbust area. Okay, and then from this top, so make sure the pad should be shorter than the fabric with 1 inch at the up here, at the top here. Then at the underbust, it should be on the same level with your underbust, as you can see mine. Then by the two sides, it should be like 1 inch more. Okay, just have something like this, and then I'll be using like quarter of an inch to stitch it up and stitch it up here. After which I will notch out the excess pad. The same thing is applicable here. My pad stops at the underbust. It stops at the underbust, and then 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. Okay, then I'll use quarter of an inch to stitch it up. After stitching, I will cut off the excess. I also do the same thing here. It stops at the underbust and 1 inch shorter than the main fabric, and then I'll stitch it up with quarter of an inch. I'll do this and show you. I've sewn it with quarter of an inch. You can see it. So what I'll do next is to trim off the excess. As the cutting part, this method is easier and straightforward. Then this excess you are seeing here, can equally trim it up because you won't be needing it. So this is okay like this. I also trim off here and do same for the other one. I've trimmed off the excesses. Now remember we notched the bust point. You can see them. So you are free to mash up the bust point to make sure that everything is equal. Okay. What I'll do next, I'll place it like this. I'll use half an inch. Remember the half an inch we added for our nipple to nipple. I'll use that half inch to stitch up all the way down. I'll stitch it. Make sure you match underbust to underbust, bust point to bust point, and make sure this top matches as well. And then you stitch it up with half an inch. You also place it this way, right side to right side, and stitch up with half an inch. I'll do it and show you. This is the lining for the front part. I also used light gum stay, the lightest one. I also used light gum stay on it. So the same thing I did for the back, for the main fabric, I'll be doing it on this lining. I'll just hold it like this too, and then I'll stitch it up with half an inch. Place it the other way, I'll stitch it with half an inch as well. So I'll do it all of them and show you. I have joined the three parts. Here's the inside, and then I spread it open and iron. Now the next thing to do is to shape my pad. I'm going to shape my pad. Looking at this now, whatever shaping you want to give it, let it not exceed 5 to 6 inches. So from here now, I'm going to take between 5 to 6 inches. For people with big bust, you can use 6 inches, but people with smaller bust use 5 inches. So here's my 6 inches. I'll just shape it like this. Okay? Also come to this part and measure out my 6 inches and shape. Just shape it like this. Then at this mid part, you hold it like this. Just hold it like this, equal parts. And then you shape it this way. Shape it like this and shape it like this too. Okay? You need to shape it so that it should be flexible. So I'm going to cut from here like this. I'll also cut this part. Then I'll hold it like this and shape the center part. Make sure it's equal. You can do that before sewing it. Any one of it is okay. I didn't cut it off completely. Okay? So just like this, to make it flexible, to make it a little bit relaxed. So here's what I have, and here's the inner part. So with this now, I'm done with the padding. The next thing to do, I'm going to attach the yoke to the front part. This is the right side, and this is the right side of my fabric. I'll place it like this, right side to right side, and then I'll make sure I mash up the mid part. Okay, I'll mash up the mid part like this. Then I'm going to use my office pin to secure it on all this neckline, like on the yoke line. I'm going to use my office pin to secure it. I'll do it and show you. I've secured it with my office pin all the way down here. Now the next thing to do, I'll be stitching it up with half an inch. Remember, we added half an inch here and half an inch on this one. Okay, so I'll stitch it up with half an inch. I'll follow this pattern and stitch it to get my sweetheart neckline. Then I can equally place this one. Just leave it like this. See the way it is. Bring it down like this, and then you place this one right side to right side. Place it like this. Get the center part and attach it as well. So you can now stitch it up with half an inch. I'm going now to stitch it like this to this point. I'll stop here. I'll do it and show you. Okay, I've stitched it up. I've stitched the yoke line, and I also notched it. Now I'm going to top stitch it. I'll place it like this. Make sure this remnant come to the lining side. I'll place it like this, and then I'll top stitch it. Okay, after top stitching, I'll have something like this. So I'll do it and come back so you see the final result. I've done it. You can see what I have here. Okay, it's looking beautiful already. And here's the inside. I've top stitched it as well. Here's the inside. So here's what I have. Alright, the next thing to do, I'm going to shape up the armhole. See this excess I have here. It's better I have excess than having shortage. So I'm going to shape it up Just be tactical about it. From here, I'll just take it. Okay, don't go too deep inside. All right, let me shape this part. Just take it. Don't go too deep. I've removed it. I've also removed this one, but I did it offline. Okay, so we are going to work on the back parts now. Here's the back. All I need to do here is fix my dart. I'll fix the dart. I notched it here. So I'm going to stitch up my dart. Stitch it up. Remember, it's 9 inches length. I'll repeat the same thing for the lining part. Then there's something I want to introduce to this work. This zip area, remember it also comes with a yoke. Okay, it's like this. Or rather, it's like this. Now I want to attach this fabric. I want to attach it to this zip area. I just want it to be from here down, so that when I fix the zip, this net won't tear easily and it won't stretch. So I'm going to attach this fabric. So this is what I'm saying. I'm going to get a fabric like this and just attach it to this net area, just this point. Okay, so that when I join this yoke to this one, it's going to be like, I'm going to cut off from here. I'll cut off here. So it's going to be like this when I join it together. It's going to be like this. Okay, so I'll just cut off from here and then join this part together so that this fabric will be inside this net. Here's what I'm saying. I've attached this fabric to it. I'm going to place it like this, right side to right side. Remember, it's supposed to be like this. So I'll turn it over right side to right side, like this. I'll place it like this, and then I'll take the lining, just the way we did it for the front. I'll take my lining right side to right side and place on top like this. Then I'll stitch it with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to, after stitching it, I'll top stitch it and turn it over like this. I'll do it and show you. I have joined the back yoke. I've joined the back yoke. You can see it. um I actually increased the size of this fabric I placed inside here. I want it to be bigger, so I actually increased my own size. And here's my zip allowance. As you can see here, I did not turn up this part. I want to interlock it. I want to use my interlocking machine to stitch up here the zip areas. But if you don't have an interlocker, make sure you turn up with like 1/4 inch, okay, so that this part will be smooth. You turn up this part and then you turn up the yoke part as well, and then after turning it up, you then sew up this place. But if you have interlocking machine, there is no need turning it up. I'll just use my interlocking machine to stitch over, to run it over like this on these two sides. All right, and then the next thing to do now is my dart. Here's my dart where I notched my dart area. So I'm going to fix my dart of not more than 9 inches length. Also for this front part, this is the front part. You can see I didn't stitch up from here. I'm also going to use my interlocker to run over it. But if you don't have an interlocking machine, place it like this. Okay, use quarter of an inch to sew it up. Do same thing for this side, and then you turn it over so that this part will be neat. Then for the front neckline and the back neckline, you can use what's it called? You can use your bias to trim it up, or you can equally use this fabric, make it a kind of design on the neckline. Whichever one I do, you see it. Okay, I've stitched the neckline. I made it with this fabric. Okay, I chose to use this fabric, but you can use bias if you want. So here's what I have. Like I told you earlier, I'm going to interlock these places. I'm going to interlock them. Here's the back part. I'm also going to interlock it. I used the fabric to make the neckline. So here is it. Alright, I'll take it to my interlocking machine and interlock it, and then I'll come back to show you what next to do. Okay, we are cutting the back parts now. Now, as you can see, I've done setting. I've marked part of it. Let me just illustrate what I did here. I removed my zip allowance of 1 inch. You can remove 1.5, depending how you can manage it. And then I took my neck width here. The same neck width you use for the front is what you use for the back, but the length, the neck length differs. You can use different neck length for the both parts, but when you are making the front and the back, always use the same neck width. So here's my neck width. I used 4 for the front, and I'm also using 4 here. And then I also marked my shoulder measurement of 16 divided by 2, 8 plus 1, 9. And then this is my armhole length of 9 inches as well. This is my chest line. I've marked it. This is my under bust. For the back part, I wouldn't need a bust point. So this is my under bust. This is my half length and my seam allowance. And I also took my nipple to nipple from this zip line. From this zip line you are seeing, I took my nipple to nipple, which is 9 inches divided by 2, 4.5 plus half, 5 inches. So here's my nipple to nipple measurement. The next thing I'll do now, I'm going to um, connect my armhole as well as my neckline. I'll just connect, give it a curve. You can make any neckline of your choice, depends what you want. And I'll also connect my armhole. But it's better you do it this way when you want to connect your armhole, so that you can have the same neck, the same armhole pattern. So this is the front part we did earlier. This is the front part. So I'm going to use this front part to trace my armhole, so that I can get the same armhole when sewing. That won't give me difficulty. So you can see it. This is the chest line. I'll place this on it like this. Okay. So I'll just mark this part, or mark this part, which is my yoke line. So I've marked it, and then from here now I'm going to connect my armhole. So from here I'll connect my armhole just like this. Okay, so I've connected it, and I've also gotten my yoke line. I can connect it as well. This is my yoke line. Now the next thing to do, I'm going to take my dart, say dart of half inch on both sides, mark half inch on both sides. So I'll connect it as well. I'm going to extend this nipple to nipple line up here. Okay, so I'll connect my dart here. This is my dart. Connect it on both sides. So I've connected my dart. The next is to take the measurements here. I'll place my tape on my chest line to get my bust measurement. And then I'll also place it on my under bust to get my under bust measurement. Remember, I have a dart of 1 inch I removed here, so remember to add the 1 inch. I also place it on my waistline to get my waist measurement plus this 1 inch. I'll do that and show you. So I've marked my dart, my measurements here, my vertical measurements. I've marked it, and I'm also going to remove 2 inches for my allowance. From here I'll take 2 inches for my seam allowance. And then for this yoke, you can see my yoke, this upper part is my yoke. For this yoke, I want it straight like this. I wouldn't want a curved yoke. All right, the front is sweetheart, so I want the back to be straight like this. So I'm not removing, I'm not curving it, and I'm not taking off anything. The only thing I will do here is remember that half inch I added at the front. The half inch is also here. So the only thing is, if I cut out this yoke, I should cut out this yoke while tracing it on the yoke fabric. I'm going to add 1 inch. That is half inch that I added, I took away from here, plus original half inch for my yoke. So I'll be adding 1 inch on the yoke part. I'll cut it and show you. Hope you know how to cut it. Just like this. Take it from here down to this point, and then you take it from here and then down here. For this part, if you want to slash it open, it's up to you, but I love doing it this way. I'll just hold it and stitch up. And then, mind you, your when you're sewing up your dart starts from 9 inches. Okay, so sew it from here. Forget this line I took up here. Sew your dart from here. Then this yoke, you can see it. This is your yoke here. Okay, you cut it out. I'll do it and show you. Okay, I've cut it out. Here's what I have. I cut out um the yoke. I've cut out, and then you can see I used another chalk to mark offline. I did that because the zip allowance I left here, I had um I had enough fabric. I had more than enough fabric. Like the excess here was more. So rather than wasting that excess, I had to add it back to my zip allowance. So my zip allowance now is 1.5 inches. You can see where I marked it. Okay, it's no longer 1 inch. I used 1.5 inches for my zip allowance. And then since I adjusted this zip allowance, I'm then supposed to adjust every other thing. I also adjusted my dart, adjusted my shoulder, everything. So don't be surprised seeing this color of chalk here. Okay, so I've cut it out, and then here's my dart. I notched it. I didn't cut out open. I notched it, and then I also notched my zip allowance. That's all for now. This is the yoke. What I'll do now is I'll use this yoke to go and trace it on the net fabric that I'll be working with. I have cut out the yoke with the other fabric, some fold. Remember the 1 inch I'm supposed to add. So I added that 1 inch before cutting. Okay, so here's what I have. I added that 1 inch here. So here's what I have for the back. Okay. Um, I have interlocked the zip area. You can see it here. I've also interlocked the sides. If you don't have an interlocking machine, you can turn it up. And I've also joined the two shoulders with interlocking machine. I'll still stitch it up. So right now, I want to take the measurement, the side measurement. So what I'll do, I'll place it like this. I'm going to take it for at this front one. Okay. So I'm working with a bust of 49. 49 divided by 2. I'm dividing by 2 this time around. 49 divided by 2 is 24.5. So I'll measure out my 24.5 here. This is 24.5. Now check what I have left. I have 3.5. So I'm going to share this 3.5 into 2. So here I'll get 1.75, and here I'll also get 1.75. Then I'll move to the under bust. This is my under bust. If you are not too certain, you measure it out. So at the under bust, I'm working with an under bust of 42. 42 divides 2. You have 21. So here's 21. And I'm left, okay, here's 21. I'm left with 2 inches. So I'll mark here 1, and I'll mark here 1. And I'll move to my waist. I'm working with a waist of 42.5. When you divide it by 2, 42.5 divide 2, I'll get 21.25. So I'll measure my 21.25 here, and I'll check what I have left. I have here 1.75. I'll divide it into 2 and then split it and share equally. So I'm going to connect it now like this. And use your ruler. So I'll use my ruler and connect what I have here. It goes like this, and down here. I'll do same thing here, and then I'll place it equal size with this one, and I'll sew it up like this. I'll repeat it. So I'll do it and bring it back for you to see. While sewing it, leave about 1 inch here. I had an allowance of about 1.5 inches. So if you know the allowance you left here, leave it open so that you can attach the lower part to it. Okay, I've joined the two sides. You can see it. And I also trim this lower part so I can get my actual allowance. I left an allowance of about 2 inches or so. So I trimmed it to 1 inch so that I can get a normal allowance. It's better you have excess than you getting shortage. Okay, next thing to do now, I'm going to make the lower part. This is going to be a gown. So I want to make the lower part, and it's also going to be a wrapper gown.